As a lot of you may know, the Big Beautiful Bill has passed, reducing the $200 tax stamp on suppressors to $0. This should go into effect January of 2026, since it is a tax bill. This means that the purchase and registration process is going to be exactly the same. You're just not going to have to pay that $200 tax stamp. As a lot more people look at buying their first suppressor now, you probably are going to have a lot of the same questions that I had when I got into suppressors. So I wanted to put some content out there because I feel that the industry doesn't do a great job at educating people on the different type of attachment methods, what your options are, the variety of calibers that can be shot through an individual can, and different concerns even regarding the materials that you would want to consider when making a purchase. Now, when I said that the process remains the same, that's not to assume that you already know what the process is. So we're going to go right into this. You would buy a suppressor the same way that you purchase a firearm or you buy anything else on the internet. You're just going to go to a website or go into a gun shop and add the suppressor to your cart, check out. You're going to have to select a FFL/SOT to ship the suppressor to. Now, an SOT is a little bit different than an FFL, but most FFLs are SOTs as well. So they're going to send their paperwork, your suppressor is going to ship to that gun shop, and then you can look at it, but you cannot take it home yet. So unlike a regular gun where you just fill out a basic background check, they call it in, make sure that you're clear and you're able to take that firearm home with you that day. For a suppressor, you're going to do a much more extensive background check. So not only are they going to ask for things like your social, but you're also going to do multiple copies of fingerprints. They're going to take a portrait headshot of you, just like a passport photo, and the ATF will approve it, and wait times may vary. When it comes to doing your fingerprints, there's several options. So when you pick your FFL SOT to send the suppressor to, if they have one of the silencer shop kiosks, those are pretty cool because you can electronically do your fingerprints there, do the whole process through that kiosk, and then you just wait. And when your paperwork is approved, you'll get an email, and then you can go to the gun shop, pick up your suppressor. You can also file by mail, and that's a lot less common these days, but you would actually have a physical thumbprint card where you would put each digit in ink, and you're going to send 2 sets of those cards with a physical printed out picture. I believe 2 pictures actually are going to be attached with all your paperwork, and it's just going to be physically mailed there. And the last way that you can file, you can find a place that does electronic fingerprints for you. And when you go in there, they're going to tie your name, your social, all your information is going to be in this very specific digital file type that they will send you. I don't believe that those fingerprints expire. Then you can file on the ATF website electronically and attach that file of your fingerprints. Unfortunately, the silencer shop kiosk wants you to use silencer shop, and they have your electronic fingerprints, but they won't actually give them to you. And then it's just that waiting process again, right? And I get an email, it says that I've been approved, and then I am able to take that suppressor home, and then you need to keep that paperwork on you. I've never had anyone at a gun range or anything ask to see my paperwork for a suppressor or a short barrel rifle. It would be good to have, like, on your phone, Google Drive, keep a version of that in a PDF form, if not a paper form that you keep in your gun bag. Now you have your suppressor. How do you actually attach it and use it on your rifle? Well, I am glad that you asked, because I had the same question. I got my first suppressor and it didn't have any way to actually attach it. So I had been waiting all of this time, and then I actually got it and I had no way of putting it on my gun. So this is a dead air mask, and this is a Tikka T1X. So a popular way to attach the suppressor is just by direct thread. So that is something you need to look at when you purchase your suppressor. How does it attach? So this direct thread just has 1/2 inch by 28 threads, and then a lot of barrels, especially on bolt guns nowadays, are also threaded. So all you have to do is take off your thread protector, attach your suppressor, and then once you have your suppressor attached, you might want to take a suppressor alignment rod and you would insert it through the muzzle end, and just make sure that everything is centered perfectly with the barrel, that you're not gonna get baffle strike. Now, of course, you can attach a suppressor this way to a AR-15, an MP5, any system that has a threaded barrel. And it's going to be the most lightweight system because there's no mount, no quick detach system, no muzzle device. So it's a very simple method, although I feel like it's most suited and catered towards people that are using rimfire rifles or pistols, or people that are either hunting or precision shooters with a bolt gun, because you're trying to keep that rifle pretty lightweight. You're probably always going to shoot it with the suppressor on, and if there's any kind of zero shift, it's obviously tying to the same point every time, and you can zero your gun to account for any point of impact shift. Keeping in mind that you can't really change it to not be direct thread if you want to put it on anything else, but this is the first method. So this is a rugged Obsidian 45. This would be a great suppressor for 45 ACP, but it's also rated for 300 blackout and some other calibers. So this has a threaded end piece, and I'm just gonna unscrew this real quick. And then your suppressor may or may not come with this already, but you're going to need a piston, and the spring is called a Nielsen device, which it probably will include. The piston, you'll need whatever is the correct thread for the barrel that you have. So I have a few different HKs, including a Mark 23. The Mark 23 has right-hand threads, and even though the thread pitch is the same on my other HKs, they are left-hand threads. So to shoot this on my Mark 23, I have to switch out this piston. And it's a good idea to put a little bit of white lithium grease around the outside of this. Then put your spring on here. As you can see, this uses silencer coat pistons, by the way. So whatever suppressor you have, just see what kind of pistons are compatible, buy the correct thread, and you install that. And now we have female threads to attach this to a handgun. Some people will like to attach a little bit of Teflon tape. The recoil on a handgun does like to make a suppressor back off a little bit, and it can become loose. So it's something you should check after shooting every magazine that it hasn't come loose to prevent end cap strikes. And just like that, you have a suppressor tight on here, you're ready to go. And if I want to shoot through something else, like a 9mm, I would just need a piston that has those threads, and I can swap this over. Because 9mm is smaller than 45, I don't need to worry about changing this end cap out or anything like that. Now here I have an Omega 9K. And if I wanted to, I could do exactly what I just showed you by threading in a piston and putting this Omega 9K on a 9mm handgun. And instead, I've decided that I want a tri-lug mount. So in that case, I just unthreaded that end cap. I removed that piston and the Nielsen device, that spring, and then you buy a tri-lug adapter and you just thread it into the suppressor. I have a tri-lug adapter on the end of this MP5, and you simply push it down and you turn it and you'll feel a lock. Make sure that it's locked. Then you have to push down, turn it, partial turn counterclockwise, and the suppressor comes off. As you see, the MP5 also has this thread protector here, so if you wanted to, you could directly thread a suppressor on here, but this is just a very easy system, especially for pistol caliber carbines, if you wanted to move the suppressor around. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter a whole lot, but this is just a neat little system that is also very popular for certain platforms. Now this next attachment method is called the QD system. So similar to a tri-lug design, it's going to be a very quick on and off, but unlike having a quarter of a turn and then popping off, you'll notice that this muzzle device has threads here at the base instead of a normal flash hider, which wouldn't have threads at the base. So this Cat Alley Cat has reverse threads, and it just attaches to the base of this muzzle device. Now the thing that you need to know about the QD system is this is probably the overwhelmingly most popular attachment method of a suppressor to a rifle, but it really is limiting in a way. So let's say that you had surefire muzzle devices on everything and you were just live or die, Surefire, and you were only ever going to own Surefire suppressors. This would be great. You put Surefire muzzle devices on every rifle you own, and you can put any of your Surefire suppressors on any of those Surefire muzzle devices. However, if then you decided you really wanted to try out a Huxworks Flow 7.62 or 5.56, or maybe you wanted a Dead Air Sandman, now you're going to need to install a Dead Air Xeno or Chemo, or their two systems, to your rifle, and then you're only going to be able to attach the Dead Air suppressor to that system, and you're not going to be able to put the Surefire suppressors on that system. The last type of suppressor is a hub mount design, and you could argue that some of these categories are interchangeable, but this is just how I think of them and break them down, since typically you'll buy a suppressor, it'll be offered as a only direct thread mount design, or it'll just be an open hub and you can add whatever attachment, whether it is a piston or it's a QD system, and if it is a QD system, it is likely proprietary. I'm sorry that this is very confusing. If you have any specific questions, please leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer. So a hub mount design here would be very similar to the QD, except it is going to be very open with female threads, and then you would buy the adapter for whatever you would thread in their QD system to the back of the hub, and then you would just use whatever muzzle devices that that manufacturer uses. So it really just depends on what you want. Consider the weight, the length, all those things, and of course the cost. If you're looking at doing a bunch of suppressors and you put Dead Air Chemo on all of them, things like that can add up. So just consider all of that. I do like that the industry has really moved in this direction though, to where you don't have to just stick to one brand or be like, hey, I have this suppressor for this rifle, this suppressor for that rifle, and you can interchange them. I really like that now people are becoming more accepting of, hey, you might not use our mounting system, but you're gonna buy our suppressor. Now, other things, as I've mentioned, that a rugged Obsidian 45 can not only be shot on 45 ACP, but if I wanted, I could shoot 9mm out of this. I could shoot 300 blackout through this. I could put this on a lever gun. I have options. I can use this on multiple calibers. And depending on how many suppressors you see yourself purchasing in the long term, that might be something that you consider. So let's say Otter Creek Labs Polonium 30. I think this is a phenomenal suppressor. It is a 30 cal, so if you want to put on AR-10, you can. If you want to put on a 6.5 Creedmoor bolt gun, you can. If you want to put on your AR-15, you can put it on so many different things, but of course, there are some cons. If I wanted to shoot this 45 ACP suppressor on a 9mm, I am carrying around a lot of extra length, a lot of extra weight. There's just better options out there if I specifically want to suppress a 9mm handgun. Ideally, you would buy suppressors for the individual calibers or the individual tools that you want to have. Understand too that things, especially like an AR 5.56, is never going to be quiet. It's never going to be hearing safe, because we're talking about 3,000 foot per second. You're going to have a sonic crack of the sound barrier regardless, so it's just always going to be loud. 9mm, you can get it to be a little quieter with like 147 grain ammo. Do you want to always shoot that out of a handgun? Probably not, but like a 45 ACP, this gun here shooting just 230 grain FMJ, very quiet, very fun, very soft to shoot. Some guns are going to suppress better than others. With a 45, you can get it very hearing safe, and a 22, again, very easy to make hearing safe. 300 blackout, easy to make hearing safe. But if you're suppressing a hunting bolt action rifle that's 300 Win Mag, I don't care what suppressor you put on it, it's never gonna be like hearing safe. Like, you shouldn't practice with that suppressor on the end and no hearing protection. But if you're out hunting and you're only gonna be taking like one shot, 2 shots, it's gonna be way better than not having anything at all. The next thing you need to consider is what material is your suppressor made out of. You're going to see things like stainless, aluminum for handgun suppressors especially, titanium, which is very strong, very lightweight, but depending on your fire schedule, if you have an FRT or machine gun or something like that, it is possible for you to get it hot enough that you damage the titanium. In which case there is Inconel. Inconel is very heavy, it's also very durable. It has amazing corrosion resistance, but do you really want to hang this 1 pound weight off the end of your rifle? Now this suppressor here, although it looks a lot larger, this in my hand feels like it might be half the weight. There's a lot of things you have to consider here, right? Where if you have a very long rifle, how much longer do you want it to be? Or what diameter do you want it to be? Is that going to bother you if on a handgun, if you have a wide diameter and you can't see your sights as well? If you're shooting both eyes open, it shouldn't matter anyways. But again, all things for you to consider. For majority of people, stainless steel is going to be great. Titanium is going to be phenomenal because it's not going to weigh much. It's going to be a little expensive, but you're probably not going to get it hot enough. So don't freak out too much. Don't buy something extremely heavy like me just because you're a little bit paranoid. But if you really do think you need it, it is an option. Eventually, your suppressor will need to be cleaned. A rifle suppressor like this is not going to need to get cleaned that often because it's not going to get as dirty. Because this is 3D printed, there's not actually a way to unscrew the end or anything like that. The best way to clean this is probably going to be a cleaning solution that CAT themselves sells. You might also consider an ultrasonic cleaner. There's a lot of different degreasers and cleaning agents you can use, but you do run the risk depending on what kind of finish is on it and what kind of materials are used that you could damage it. If it has a titanium baffle stack that you can remove and just put that in the ultrasonic cleaner, that might be a better idea. Now, a suppressor like this rugged obsidian, you can remove the baffles. So I don't have the tool for the end cap to remove that piece here, but you can see these are very dirty and the baffle stack just dumps out. And you can see that they only go together one way. So all these baffles come apart. You can clean them. I'm not gonna get into the cleaning methods and stuff because everyone has their own opinion on that. You can decide what's best for you, but you can take this part, clean it whatever way you feel is the best, and then put your suppressor back together. Ideally, I would take off this end cap and I could get the baffles out of this front part too, but I don't have the tool with me right now, so unfortunately I can't show you that part. The Omega 9K that I showed earlier is one piece welded together. There's no way of removing the baffle stack from inside. Now, one thing that is important to note is that even though you can shoot a suppressor with multiple calibers, you should designate a suppressor for 22. And fortunately, now that there is not going to be a $200 tax stamp, rimfire suppressors are really cheap. So now with options like the Yankee Hill offerings and things like that, now you can buy a designated 22 suppressor, get the benefit of the compact size, the lightweight, and just use it on 22 because you're going to want to clean it much more frequently. But put on the scale, see what it weighed when you got it, and then go shoot a few hundred rounds out of it and weigh it again. That difference in weight is all just lead buildup in your suppressor. I mentioned earlier the Huxwork flow suppressors, or I might have said the term flow through at some point in this video, and I wanted to just clear this up because there's a lot of marketing lingo and people get a little bit confused. So flow through is actually a term coined by Huxworks, and that's just their technology for a reduced back pressure suppressor. But typically a traditional suppressor is going to be a lot more affordable and it's going to do a lot better job at sound suppression. There's a lot of different flavors out there for reduced blowback. Some companies do it a lot better than others, but the big benefit of it is, let's say you have a rifle that does not have an adjustable gas block. When you add a suppressor, you're going to increase the blowback, and that is the hot gas because it's not going out the muzzle anymore, and all that carbon is going to blow back into the system. Reduced blowback has much less of that, and it's a lot less of that carbon also being blown back into the weapon, so you're not going to have to clean it as often. That's one of the reasons why traditionally MP5s are so popular for running suppressed, because the roller delayed system runs so clean. It's so reliable that even if it gets gunked up, it's still gonna keep running. Something to consider that maybe if you have a piston AR, you don't care as much. Maybe if you have a DI AR, maybe you consider a flow through. If you don't have an adjustable gas block, then something with reduced back pressure is going to benefit you. And even if you can't tune your rifle, it shouldn't affect the function a whole lot. Lastly, I would be doing a disservice to all of you if I didn't mention Pew Science. Like a lot of us, he was tired of buying multiple suppressors and being promised all these things from the marketing departments and from their own videos that they put out. And then you actually get the suppressor, you pay your tax stamp, and you wait a year and a half and test it, and it doesn't live up to those expectations. If you're not into all the science, you can just look at his rating. He has a very detailed scale on whether or not the suppressor is good for a couple rounds, good for maybe a session of practice. Try and keep some of these things in mind and understand that being as quiet as possible shouldn't necessarily be your primary concern depending on the application, especially with calibers that you know you're never going to make completely quiet. You can still tame them just enough, and sometimes enough is the right amount, especially if you're hunting something that is compact, lightweight, that you're going to carry with you is probably going to be a lot more effective than having a heavy, very long suppressor. So I promised you a high-level overview, and I hope that I did that. I'm sure that there are still lots of questions, things that I missed. If you leave a comment, I'll do my best to find you an answer if I don't already know the answer. I have no affiliation, no one pays me to say any of this stuff, and I'm sure YouTube will demonetize, if not take down this video, for the content of which it provides. Even though everything that I'm talking about is entirely legal, it is your right, but I would appreciate it. I never ask you guys to do so. The thumbs up, like button, the subscribe, it is very appreciated. I don't fully understand how the YouTube algorithm works, but I do put a lot of time and money into some of these videos, especially ones where I'm shooting a few hundred or several hundred rounds of ammo to give you guys the best opinion and the best analysis that I possibly can. I would appreciate you guys checking out some of the other videos. If I don't have anything that interests you somehow, leave a comment, tell me what you'd like to see. I love testing things and trying new things, so even if it's a platform that I don't even own or have experience with, maybe I know someone that does, or maybe that's something that I dive into, because that's what I ultimately enjoy doing. I hope this was informative without too much of me just rambling on and on. So thank you for watching, and hope to see you in the next video.